And we're live. Welcome back. It's hard to believe it's another Friday. It's Spence from WP Launchify here for our office hours. It is April 11th, 2025. Kind of boggles my mind to use that date. Let's see if we got the sound working. Crossing fingers. Waiting for YouTube to kick in here. And by the way, if you are here on YouTube or on Facebook, just check in and say hi with me. I am waiting for the stream to show its face. There it is. Okay, it's working. Good morning. The stream seems to have had a little delay in YouTube, but I'm actually in and the sound is good. So we're going to get off to a good start. I do want to switch over here, though, on my alternative monitor so that I can do your questions or take your questions. So let me just check in here with this while you guys say hi. Do give me a heads up in the comments. I always like to say hello. Hello. Let's see if it works from, yeah, it works from that dashboard. I like to check in on my other machine. I've got a machine up here and a machine down here. Good morning. I see the numbers starting to climb. Off to a sunny day. Not quite the summer that I am dreaming of, but definitely we're in biking territory. So good morning, Kurt. Good morning, Alex. Just coming off of my WP Tonic show with Kurt yesterday, which was always fun. And okay, good. I mostly got this thing squared away today. I just had to get a couple things set up, but while everybody's piling in, it looks like YouTube is just slightly delayed. Just started my live office hours. For those of you who want to talk today, I am available. I'm just not available while I'm talking here. Today, we're going to talk about all the ways that you can customize WooCommerce. There are actually 4 things to cover: shop, checkout, products, but I'm also going to cover the My Account area. And one last thing here is just getting, my office maintenance here. Sorry about that, guys. And finally, got it going. Okay. The thing that often befuddles people is that WooCommerce has a lot of different ways to customize stuff. Good morning, John, too. Good morning, Alex. Good morning. Good morning to everybody. It befuddles everybody because the things that are available overlap. And so what we're trying to do here, and what I've made my mission in WordPress in general, is to create, much like I have behind me, an IKEA experience where you go in and there is somebody, and today I'm wearing the yellow vest, that will essentially be able to help you find anything in the store that works with anything else you've ever bought in history from IKEA, not just that day, but in history. And a couple office hours ago, I did a Marie Kondo and Ingvar, I can't pronounce his last name, but the founder of IKEA's story. And one of the things that he did really well in that regard was simplification, streamlining, less choices, less ways to do things. And today, you're going to see what's really at the heart and soul of most of the setups, which is WooCommerce, and how to customize some of the basic stuff, because it really is flexible. But when you start to bring in other components, you start to do the little old lady swallowed a fly problem, which is, I call the Frankenstein monster, the shiny ball syndrome. You are adding more pieces instead of removing more pieces. And that's where that Marie Kondo simplification part comes in. We're trying to make it as easy as possible for everybody to get the results they want without having something else trip them up. So let's dive in. And I've set up a new instance here that we're going to use. I'm also going to go through, John is actually recently with us and had some good questions. I'm going to be always improving the interface. But what I have here is the new version of LaunchKit, and we are signed in. So just so I cover a couple bases here, John had asked me about this. Good suggestion. LaunchKit plugin managers disabled. Please log into WP Launchify with a valid subscription. I'm going to change that notification. That was from my recent update. I'm going to change it to say, please log in the header here using your WP Launchify credentials. What I've done for my own simplification is said, look, I've already got the tools available to connect any website that you want to use the plugin on to WP Launchify so that your subscription credentials can be used everywhere without the need for what I think is nonsense, which is a secondary license or a number that you have to manage. Instead, why not just use the thing that you already are familiar with, which is your login to WP Launchify? All right. So just to get this started, first of all, I'm going to use the launch kit to install what I'm suggesting is the theme that we should all be using, which is Cadence. Now, if you happen to be using another theme, it's not a problem. Looking at this and this, I think this is just as good. I like Cadence because of the consistency. I've actually been testing some of the things on other themes, as well as what Kevin Geary is doing. It seems like it really makes no difference when you're using an underlying theme because the styles are just an esoteric thing. But what does matter using Cadence is there's a lot of components in the theme, not just in the blocks, that would otherwise be unavailable if you used something else. Since the results you're going to get are going to be more consistent when you're following along using the same ingredients as I am, I'm suggesting why not just use the same ingredients? Okay. So I'm unsatisfied with my position on the screen of both of these, so I'm going to stick with this. All right. Next, we have the ability to check for the latest software bundle. There's a button here, and there's also a button at the top, update software bundles. So you can access this at any time. And when you have the latest one, it'll tell you have the latest one, and we can install what we need. For this, we don't have to install everything because I'm going to talk about styling today. So we can enable just the things that do with styling and with mechanics about WooCommerce. And that's going to be the Cadence stuff as well as the WooCommerce stuff. Now, here's a trick you can do. You can actually just install all of the plugins into the plugin manager by clicking the checkbox above and install all of them. You'll notice that it goes very fast this way. And this is a trick because what we're doing is saying, look, you've got a package that has all these ingredients you can add into your freezer. Let's just put them all in the freezer, and then we'll only turn on the ones that we want to use, right? So as quickly as that, I've installed about 107 plugins. That to me is a pretty remarkable benefit. One of the other things that you'll notice is there's just all kinds of already like stuff and spam and things going on all over the place, even before I've activated anything. So what I like to suggest is go into LaunchKit and set up the basics of using the tools that make it easier as an administrator. And that's under the settings menu here now. I just simply click the top box and then uncheck the hide LaunchKit from admin menu, because this would be a useful tool if you had a client and you wanted to hide it from them, but it's not useful if you're the one running the site. You don't want to hide the menu from yourself, even though technically you can get to it just by using page equals WPLK in the URL. Okay, now that we've got that, one of the things that you can do is use the hide notices feature at the top. And that becomes a very civilized experience now for running the site. So that when we go over here to the plugins manager, we're not going to get inundated with 1,000 different things that show up on the screen. Every time that a new plugin is installed from a different author, there's just a spin the wheel chance that they're going to have some kind of onboarding wizard take you away to a faraway land, or they're going to install something you don't want, or they're going to spray paint your bridge with graffiti about things that they think is important. And I just think that's unnecessary and it's confusing to the users. So by enabling the hidden notices, you can see there's a big red dot here that there's something under the hood, but you don't have to be bothered by it. Now what we'll do is let's use the search tool and just look for Cadence. We'll install the Cadence stuff and enable it. I should say just enable it. And we're going to do Cadence Blocks Pro, Cadence Blocks. The rest of these not so important. Conversions, custom, focus. We'll come back to those. Cadence Pro. This is for the theme to add maybe some functionality. Now here's one that's a trap. The Cadence Shop Kit. I'm going to install this. I should say and activate this or enable this last, because this is one of the Marie Kondo philosophies I want to talk about. Let's also install starter templates. Okay, and all we're going to do is just apply the bulk activation, which should work fine. And if we have any problems with this, one of the things I suggest is just turn off the notices hidden. And sometimes that, if you're having trouble bulk activating, that will also help. So let's just do it this way. Activate. One of the things that you'll notice too is that if you turn off the notices hidden and there is a free update, you can always update either with the link here for the software bundle, or you can just do it directly. It's only on the premium plugins that we offer that you wouldn't have that option to do it either way. You would just use the update with software bundle link, which you can see is conveniently located here in orange. So we know what we've got. So now let's go ahead and do the WooCommerce. We're going to enable WooCommerce itself, which should already be there. Let's see if it didn't. Yeah, let's start with activating WooCommerce first. Now we don't need everything because we're talking about styling, but let's just put in the pieces that we would otherwise use. With WooCommerce, we're definitely going to use launch flows, which is the product that I write for sales funnels. Even though it's not going to necessarily be applicable to what I teach you today, it's useful to have it in case there's something. We're going to need the gateway and the checkout manager too. So let's do checkout manager and a Stripe gateway, subscriptions, custom price string. The rest of these aren't super critical for what I'm going to show you today. Okay, with WooCommerce, normally what happens is you're going to get the onboarding wizard and it takes you away to a faraway land. Notice that didn't happen here. I will update the checkout manager though, and I will update the Stripe gateway just to make sure we get the latest versions. Notice how fast it is when you're working with the system, because now what I can do is get rid of all the plugins I don't need. And all you need is click on delete inactive plugins, clean them up. And then what we've essentially done in a metaphor is we've taken all of the ingredients that we just loaded into the freezer, we put them on the counter, and now we decided which things to use in our recipe and we put the rest of them back. Because see, now we've only got the things that we activated. And that's super convenient. When we use the hide notices, it makes it even more convenient because now very civilized experience. All right, now that we've got what we want, let's talk about first things first. We're talking about the shop itself. This one is very interesting because it's a concept that out of the box, WooCommerce has what's called an endpoint. An endpoint is a virtual page that allows you to display content automatically, but it has to come from a certain product or plugin and so forth. So WooCommerce generates a shop page by default that spits out the necessary code. If you don't do anything else, the default shop page that will be created will be at the URL of /shop. It doesn't actually need a page there. It's just going to put it onto the page by default. Now, this is a blessing and a curse. Here, I want to show you a client that I was setting up the other day who, believe it or not, their domain name is italianbeef.com. Talk about an awesome, awesome domain name for what they do, because it's Bari Beef Chicago. Now, they wanted to do a custom shop page. If we were to go to their normal shop page, you see this is a cool layout, slightly customize an image. If you were to go to the normal shop page, these would not show the way they're showing here because the normal shop page would put out a default grid that we really have very little control over. But with a very simple snippet of code with CSS, we're able to essentially override what the default output is and do something really clever. Let's go ahead and add a couple products so that we can demonstrate what's going on. So first of all, we go into the dashboard and we're going to add a couple products that'll allow us to at least show some stuff on the screen. I could import some sample data. Let's just make really quick 2-3 products and we'll just add a couple images to them. Okay. So if product, we'll just say product 1 and we'll just keep it as a simple product and we'll say it's $100. And we're not going to worry about the checkout stuff at the moment. Let's just style it by giving it a quick image. All you need is the title, the price. Actually, let's go into pixels. You need the title and the price. And let's make this the product. And the details of what type of product it is. Once you have that, the rest of the details are important, but not critical. Like it will still operate as long as you have the basics. Similarly, like with launch flows, you don't need to have the full thing set up, but if you set it up to go to the checkout page, at least you know the product will go where it's supposed to go, and we'll do a clean sales page. I'm going to come back to this in a minute when we talk about products, but let's just at least get maybe 2 or 3 products. So I'll just use the duplication feature of this in WooCommerce. We'll duplicate it and make it product 2 and product 3. And just to keep it interesting, we'll change the image. We'll make it the headsets and we'll change the price just to keep it again interesting. We'll make this $200. No big deal either way. And then finally, real quick, we'll make a product 3. One of the things that I have that's in the experimental phase that should come out this weekend, if I have a little success with it, is a flattening of the controls in the product space that will allow us to essentially programmatically create any number of products, but not have to do so much of this dancing around where I go to all the various tabs and other things. It'll all just be more flat and visible, much easier to manage both on a manual sense as well as if you have some AI help. Let's just keep it simple. We'll put thing as the other product. My goal is to ultimately not have to do any of the setup through the normal interface. I would like to have it where you just have a form that you can fill out or your clients can fill out that fills in like a Mad Libs games, all of the necessary components that you need to start your site. Okay, now I've got 3 products. Let's go back and look at the shop as it is out of the box and talk about where you're going to go to work on the basic design and the advanced design. If we go to the shop page out of the box, we're going to see, first of all, there's this really unusual header at the top, and then we've got the output of the default grid, which is what I was referring to with Bari Beef. So let's talk about the basics. Where does this layout all come from? Well, 2 things. First of all, the page itself comes from Cadence, which is super convenient because even though this is being generated programmatically, we can adjust whether or not we want to show the header, the footer, some basic layouts. And we do that by going into the dashboard, and we're going to go under Appearance, Customize. So Appearance, Customize. And this is going to bring up some options that the Cadence theme provides, which I think are very convenient. In this case, we're going to go under the WooCommerce tab, and we'll see we have the product catalog. I think they should have called that the shop, but nevertheless, we can decide whether we want to show this gigantic title or if we want to show a title, but just do it more like inline. Those are 2 really good choices out of the box, and one can change the color and scheme of the font. I think they're overkill. They take up a lot of real estate. So I just get rid of them by turning them off. Next, we can decide whether or not to show a breadcrumb that leads back. You'll notice out of the box it's off because it's not really super useful for much. So I'm just going to leave it off. It would only show, by the way, if we had this on. So again, if we did this and we turn on the breadcrumb, you'll see a breadcrumb that will show up right here. Okay. Since we're not displaying any of that, let's just turn it off. Next is we've got the basic layout. Here we've got the normal page, which is decided by your default theme settings. What's the normal layout? You can also go with a narrow width, which isn't bad. It's very efficient. Full width, which would work out only if you customize things, because what happens then is that the products go all the way to the side, and that doesn't work out very well for shops. You could, if you needed to, for example, if you had faceted search or other tools, use a left or a right sidebar. I don't really favor these because I think most people are on mobile responsive these days, and having scrolling is more efficient than having sidebars. You'll also notice a consequence here is that when you have the sidebar, the content of the sidebar will display on the page above or below the rest of the stuff, and that can lead to sometimes some odd results. If you do want to do, if you would like to have faceted search, such as product filters similar to Amazon, we can typically do those at the top of the page in a more efficient way. That is to say that the page is always sort of controls at the top, content below, regardless of how responsive the layout is. For this, I'm just going to go with the normal layout. And you'll also notice we have some other choices with the sidebar. Which sidebar of the WordPress array do you want to be the one displaying in that area? Next, we can go with an boxed or an unboxed style. And it's hard to see this, but this is a 2-color, right? A piece of paper on a background. If you go with the unboxed, it's all just white. If you go this color, you can kind of see it changing. It's very subtle, but it's changing from a gray to a white. And then you can decide whether you need to show this other info about how many archive products there are, whether you want to show that grid or list view toggle, which, by the way, not super useful for any purpose that I can think of, but switching from list view to grid, I just turn these off. All right. The product hover is sort of annoying because notice it's on none. Watch what happens if I put it on fade. You just have this, I don't know if it's going to really show here. Hold on. It's not really showing too well on the video, but it's the way that this thing moves when you roll over it. I'm going to just say leave it at none. Button action style. See how this slides up? Or you can just make it fixed. I think I would rather have it fixed. Too much motion, in my opinion, is no good in today's responsive world. People are scrolling and moving on the page, and things dancing around are no longer really valuable for any purpose, mechanically speaking. Aesthetically, it doesn't really make a big impression, but if you feel you want it, it's not going to hurt. And then the button style could be either text with an arrow, or you can make a button. Now notice what we've got here is a very limited set of stuff, right? And this is actually, if you go with the buttons, always put it at the bottom, which will keep things always, vertically balanced, even if the words you use are different on each line. This is probably my choice setup. It's not a lot, but it's just enough. And if you click on the design tab, that's where you can at least adjust some of the things that are the color, like the title color, the title font, the description. I don't think the buttons are here, but let me say, hold on. Yeah, the buttons are here. So you got the button font, border radius. You've got the button shadow, hover state shadow, and the background. Notice you have the button colors here. So you could go with background color. If you didn't want blue, I think you could just change it to red. Pretty straightforward. This is your hover. So I like to keep the hover the same color. So notice I've just switched from a blue to a red. Really, really simple. Now, when we do this and we look at the shop page, we're now going to have something that's aesthetically pretty pleasing, but it's not awesome. It's just pretty plain Jane. Also notice that I don't have a great amount of control over things like the images. These are just coming out as the default WooCommerce images. And in order to change that, I would have to go back and change the default image settings of WooCommerce, which I could do if I go back over here, product images, and instead of saying, 600 wide and 300 this and crop it 1-to-1, I could create either uncropped, which would take the native 16:9 image and it should show it. That's probably your best bet. Or you could customize it to a hard ratio like 4:3 or 16:9. That's another option. Or you could do what we had as the default and crop it. I actually like the uncropped and I like the rectangular shape because I tend to work in images that show more horizontally than vertically. It's just more efficient that way. And then the thumbnail 300 and max image at 600, those are fine. So now we've left ourselves with really a much better outcome, a little more efficient. Notice it's set up for 4 rows. If we wanted to make the layout only 3 rows, we're going to go back to appearance, customize. And now we're going to tell it, look, we really don't need that extra row. We only have 3 products. Or if you wanted to do it like in relation to how many products you have, try to make it that you don't have any orphans, 1 product laying at the end. So we go back to the product catalog. And if we scroll down, we can choose how many products per row, right? So here I can just choose 3 products. And then I can say, I want maybe, 4 rows per page. And then I also have one last option of mobile columns. Do I want it 1 or 2 columns? It just depends. On an iPhone, a modern iPhone, you can get away with 2 columns and it still looks pretty good. Let's first of all see what the 3-column layout works as. Beautiful. Now let's also see what happens. I'm going to go over here. If instead of the normal layout, I went with something like narrow, let's see what that looks like. It's pretty good. I mean, on a big screen like this would work out pretty well. And it actually gives you a little more emphasis because you got some space around it. All right. Now, I'm going to leave the concept of using the built-in appearance customizer option from Cadence, because now what if you wanted to add a really cool custom image? Well, the problem is there's no edit this page option. That's because it's being spit out as an endpoint. It's being created dynamically and programmatically, not because we're using a page. However, we can override this. Let's do it this way. First of all, we go to WooCommerce settings. And what we're going to do is check to make sure that we've got the setup of the products page as a particular shop page. Notice this is set to the page called shop. It doesn't allow us to directly edit that page when we're on the shop page, but if we go to pages, we will see that WooCommerce has created it as a placeholder for us. And if we edit it, we can put content in there, but there's a problem you're going to see in a second. So let's go ahead and add a really cool panel like my friend Vince did here to lay this out differently. First thing I always want to do is add a row using Cadence, and we're going to put a full width row in. So notice where it says inherent max width from theme. Let's turn that on. And then let's also, if we want it to go full width, let's change the page settings to full width. Notice a moment ago, we were dealing with these page settings inside of Appearance Customizer. Let's override it here. Let's disable, unbox, disable. So now we've got a full width palette. I'm putting in a row, and I'm going to add an image to this row. I'd like to use my friend's really cool thing. The thing about this is the background can go full width or the image can go full width. The way I've set it up is right now, I've said the max width of the internal part is only the width of the theme, which is by default 1290 pixels. So let's show you, first of all, if I change the row background to a color, let's do a solid color. Let's see what happens on the shop page before I add anything else. Notice I got this band at the top, and notice what happened to my output. My output went wacky because I told it I want the page to go full width. So it overrode that narrow width, and now everything is kind of way too far out. And that doesn't look so good. But let's first talk about the banner. If I wanted to put an image in here, I can add a custom image of any type, and let's just choose something cool from Pexels. I don't know, let's do some cool background thing. That's kind of wild and crazy, but it doesn't matter. We're going to add this to demonstrate that when we put an image in there, we can style it and it can float inside of that red banner right in the middle. Let's refresh the page. Let's make sure I've saved it. And then refresh the page. Okay. Notice I've got the image and the big banner, but it's still like nowhere near what I need because I don't really want the image to be above. I want the image to be below, like the Italian beef. In fact, I could even use the Italian beef image there if I wanted, because I can use the remote image. So if I go over here to Italian beef, this is a cool trick for you. You shouldn't steal people's images, but if you have an image that's being used somewhere else and I wanted to, let's say, use it, maybe it's my own stuff. One of the things you could do is a remote URL. So if I just inspect this, I can get the URL that way. Or I think if I go here, it's not going to give it to me this way. So I have to inspect it. Or I can use from yesterday. I have this wonderful tool that is the peeper, the CSS peeper, that allows me to see the color palette. And I thought it might be giving me the images, but no. Okay, so we'll just stick, sorry, peeper. We're just going to go with the images by inspecting. And all we're going to do here is just look for the source of the background image. There's lots of ways to do this more efficiently, but this is about as easy as I can get. Just click on it, copy image URL. And now let's go back over here, because what we're going to do is let's replace this image. Let's delete the one I had in here. Let's do it this way. Let's delete the image because I want to show you when you add a new image this way, image, you can use the URL, insert from URL, and ta-da, now I've got the Italian beef image. But that's not really what the other one had. The other one had the image full width. So the way you do that would be, let's not do an image inside of the section. Let's just instead go back to the row layout. Let's clear the background. And instead, let's use a background image inserting from URL. Cool. Now we have to tell it what's the minimum height, because otherwise it's just going to collapse down. So here what we can do is go to advanced structure, minimum height, and we can do one of two things. We can either say like minimum height 500, or if you want it to be super cool, you can have it that it's like the same height of the screen, no matter how big the screen is when it opens. This could cause you some trouble if you're on a laptop or if you're on a desktop, because it might just be too far out. So let's just be realistic about it. Let's just say 600 pixels. And now let's take a look at what we've got as far as this panel. Pretty cool, right? Mostly covered what I needed to cover. And by the way, you'll notice there's controls here, so you can set the minimum height differently depending on whether it's on tablet or on mobile. And you notice the image gives you a nice little preview of that as well. I'm going to make this just slightly higher. And now what we've got is essentially the basis for what we want to do. But the problem we've got is, the default shop page is still sticking its nose where it doesn't belong. What's up with that? Well, fortunately for you guys, we have the WP Launch Club. And if you go inside WP Launchify into the club, yesterday I made a post, which is what I think the club does best. And in the club, I put the CSS little magical snippet that's going to help us do the next step, which is how to easily override the default WooCommerce shop. And all we're going to do is take the little snippet of CSS here. You do not need to code, just copy this. And now we're going to go to our shop page. And what I want to do is I want to hide this. I want to hide the output of the default WooCommerce shop page. And to do that, I'm going to add a new row at the bottom. So I say add after row. This is just a Tupperware container. And it doesn't really matter if it's inherent max width, because I'm not going to actually show anything, but I'm going to put in here the HTML block so that I can paste in here the necessary style. When you use the HTML block, like I showed in the note, you need to put these two wrappers above and below, style and /style. And that's going to tell the page it's okay to hide this default output. Let's wait till it saves, and then we'll refresh the page. Watch what happens to the bottom stuff. Bye-bye bottom stuff. It's still there. It's just hidden. Okay. Why? Because what I want to do is put my shop output, like we did on the Bari Beef page. I'm going to put my shop output at the top. And I want it to look the way I want it to look. And the easiest way to do that is, let's go back in here to the row. Let's go above. So we say add before the picture of the scooter. And I'm going to put in another Tupperware container that inherits the max width. Here's the magic trick. I am going to use the posts grid. I can use any of the post output, or I can even do a custom query that puts the products I want into the place that I want by using the portfolio. Let's use the portfolio. No, let's not do this. This is going to be image. Let's do the post instead of the portfolio. So we do posts, grid, carousel. Let's go with, we could go with any of these starter layout styles. Doesn't matter. We can customize it. Here's the important part. On the right-hand side of the page, you're going to open up the block editor, select this post grid block, and then we're going to choose post type of products. Notice we have 3 products. We can filter this by category or choose individual products. We can do any magic trick we want here, but let's just use the default output. We're going to say number of items, 3, 6. It doesn't make a difference. But notice what we got is if we put more, okay, if we put 6, it's just going to give us the opportunity to say how many per column anyway. So we go to layout. Let's turn off exclude. Let's go to layout settings. Layout, either grid, masonry, or carousel. Let's do grid, but we're going to say 3 columns. And we need to fix these images. So let's keep going to the image settings. And here we're going to say image on top. And we're going to say image ratio, either inherit the natural one, or we could do, like we talked about, 16:9. It's all good. Image is a link to the post. That means it's going to take you to the product if you want to see the product by clicking on the image. We can also adjust the things like the titles and the size of the images. So notice here where it says image large, we can go to a larger size image or a smaller one for efficiency. It really makes no difference, but we don't need to show gigantic images if they're just thumbnails. Notice we've also got this padding. Let's reset the padding. We can do it like either by sliding the slider or just clicking reset. That gives us essentially the full width. And then we can also mess around if we want with things like the style title and so forth. So if we look here, we've got text alignment is text set to the left. We could center that. We could change the background. We can do lots of different things, including with the content background itself. If we go here though, let's close this and this. If we go back over here, we have advanced above title, taxonomy, title settings, show title. Title is a link. We can choose the title color. If we wanted to go back to that cool red. Okay. So what I've got now, and also posted on, I don't need that. I don't need to show what date it was posted on because it's a product. So let's go to below title meta and turn off the date. Now, if I wanted to, I could show an excerpt. If there was an excerpt, I didn't make an excerpt, but with the products, the excerpt comes from the product description. For this, let's just leave it as it is because that's enough information for me to get where I want to go. More importantly, is now I'm able to put the products above the scooter and looks and feels the way I want it. Now, remember before I had that really nice, it wasn't so wide, it was narrow. I can, if I want, adjust the width of this row from, instead of inherent max width, I could say, you know what, make it a maximum width of only 800. Okay. And that's going to affect only the product row, not the scooter row. And now I've got essentially whatever I want. Now, Vince had done this using some of the rollover stuff, because what you can also do is use a product output block. He also had a title here, choose a party pack. So these are things, for example, if I just added another row above, I can add, just like we did, row, center. I'm going to put in here heading, and I can either do dynamic or fixed text. So if this was the heading, I would say, you know, get some products. And I would choose the size. I could choose the layout and so forth. Now, one last thing on this. Instead of using the post grid carousel, I can also output products with another block. So if I added before, I could type the word products, and notice I've got a bunch of options. Let's expand what I can see here. Product. So here there are certain things that you can use and you can't use. You cannot use the launch flows product things because that only works on the product pages. But what you can do is, here's a product carousel. I wouldn't use it. Here's featured product. Here's products that are filtered. You can use lots of other things to output products, hand-picked products. The downside of some of the other ones, though, as I'll show you, is that the layout controls are not as good as using the Cadence post grid. So let's, for example, hand pick, hold down. I'll pick all three of these same products, layout, stack or grid, doesn't matter. Notice I don't have a lot of controls. I can say how many columns there are and whether it's responsive, but notice there's no style stuff. But let's see how that works out anyway. If I put that on the page, it puts them in there. And unfortunately, like you can see, I got a little orphan there at the top. It doesn't really give me a super amount of control. Let's do 3 over the things to show or the buttons or any of that. I'm just sort of left with like, okay, I'll take what you're giving me. And that's another reason why I prefer to use just a custom output using the posts grid or doing a custom query. And let me just clean up this one last thing. We've got an orphan paragraph here. Okay. So one little snippet, two ways of outputting it. Notice some of the differences here when you use a product grid. You can get the add to cart button. You can get the price. You can get some other stuff. You can do the rollover stuff versus a more static array. But it really doesn't make a difference because when somebody's going to go to the product page anyway, they're going to get the other information there, or it's just going to be directly added to cart. So it's just a personal preference. But this is a super duper fast way of getting stuff done. And it allows you to choose which display styles or features you care about without having to go into creating a custom element. Now, I would be doing you guys a disservice if I didn't mention that if you want to replace the entire shop page or just the product loop, or you wanted to hook stuff above or below the shop page, there are tools available inside of Cadence to do that. The first is Elements. So if you've not set it up before, under Appearance, Cadence, you would turn on the Hooked Elements option. And when you did that, you would now have the ability to customize and create a new loop or a new template or a new thing that you could hook above or below and do it programmatically. But there's a catch. For some strange reason, it doesn't allow you to override in the normal elements the WooCommerce shop. To do that, you would either have to do a hooked element and hide the normal shop like I showed you, which seems like work for no reason compared to just doing it on the shop page. Or you would have to use that plugin that I told you about that I give you if you want to use it, but that I would not use here. And that is in LaunchKit. That is the Cadence Shop Kit plugin. I wanted to love this. I wanted this to be awesome. This is not awesome. I don't use it. You can use it. I don't use it. If you use the shop kit, there is a feature in here that allows you to create a replacement for the shop page and swapping it much like when we use elements, which are essentially, for those of you who come from the Elementor background, they're like custom templates, but without having to do a template. The reason that I'm not a big fan of this is because the shop kit has a bunch of other stuff in there that bangs into very badly a bunch of other products and services that we offer. And so I give this to you because I know some people ask for it, but I don't ever want anybody to use it. When and if you explore it, because now I've opened up this can of worms, you will find that under the products, first we have to turn this on. So first thing you have to go is you got to go to Shop Kit, and you would have to enable the feature that allows you to replace the product. And this is under Product Gallery or Product Templates. Yeah, Product Templates, enable Product Templates. You can decide whether or not you want to add the WooCommerce things. If you do this, you will then have an option under, once we refresh the page, under Products to create a new template. And so let's go here now to Products, and you'll see Woo Templates. Notice we can create a brand new product archive. This is a lot of work. I tested this yesterday. It's a lot of work, and you end up with having to have this ShopKit plugin enabled, and it is not worth it. Go with the way I recommended to do it here, and you won't be disappointed. Because this lets you work basically really simply inline. What you see is what you get. You can save it as a pattern. It works brilliantly. Why make it more complex? If I go this way, I have to create a separate element. I have to sort of break the theme customizer. I have to break the product customizer. Just not worth it. But I wanted to mention it here, and it doesn't mean that it's not good for some other reasons that people might use it. But at the moment, I am using it for nothing, and I can't recommend it, even though I know I have to give it to you. Okay, I'm going to turn it off. Now let's talk about the next thing on our list, which is checkout. Checkout is much easier because we're using launch flows. Out of the box, the default checkout from WooCommerce comes with the brand new, really horrific, but on the way to greatness, Gutenberg block. It's really horrific because they completely killed all its capability or your ability to customize it. James Kemp, if you're listening, why? Notice the default thing doesn't let you show anything unless or until you got products in here. That's not the way the world works. Can you imagine if you went to the supermarket and the checkouts were all like a Costco, but you couldn't see the checkouts unless you were approaching it with a cart that had products in it? That's just ridiculous. The checkouts should always be there because they're a place that we often will do things like upsell, downsell, cross sell, order bump. We'll be combining products ready to buy. It's ridiculous that the default nature of WooCommerce's new whiz bang block is to hide that. The thing that's also ridiculous, and again, James, he's a pal, but this is nonsense. It's all locked up. Every single thing that's cool here is locked up. It's locked. Why did you give me a block, WooCommerce, that has all of these things that would be so awesome to customize, and it's locked up? And there is currently, as I sit here on April 11th, no way I know programmatically to unlock this. Why? Why? Okay, rant over. Normally, you are able to unlock blocks. You cannot unlock this block. Sam, I am. Okay, so we're deleting the block. And instead, all you need to do is go to the page tab, and with launch flows, add a checkout to this post. Magic ensues. Because now, out of the box, the checkout is ready for you to customize. Now, here's what's cool about WooCommerce. Out of the box, WooCommerce and launch flows will allow you to take the default classic stuff and do all the things that you want to do. Yes, we cannot have anybody doing what they want using the Gutenberg blocks that apparently are so awesome. We can't trust you to move things around without breaking it. Like, what? This is like I just bought the brand new car from WooCommerce and the gear shift is locked and the steering wheel's locked and the trunk is locked and the seats are locked and the windows are locked. It's like, get over yourselves. Guys, James Kemp, product manager, come on. Number 2. Before we modify things, let's change the page layout using our favorite page settings. For this, I don't need the header and footer title, or the header title, I should say. I actually go with a narrow look on this. It works really well. A boxed narrow checkout works really well. So narrow, box checked. We don't need a featured image. Let's see what that does right out of the box. This is going to give us a really efficient layout, but it's still 2 columns. We don't really need 2 columns. So there's a couple ways we can change that. One of the ways is if we go into launch flows, we've given you some controls in launch flows, not kit. For example, let's make sure that we enable product thumbnails. Let's hide the view cart notice that comes up every time you add something to the cart. I mean, do you really need that? You've just put something in your cart at Costco. Let's enable the product removal link and the quantity in case somebody wants to buy more than one. There's other things we can do, including we could force this just into a 1-column layout. Watch how easy this option is. If you wanted to do nothing else, just this alone is magical. Ta-da, you're done. That's it. You've got out of the box billing details. You've got additional info, your order. Now, before I go and customize this further, what can I do to really tweak this a bit better? Well, I'm selling virtual products. I don't need to take everybody's address on a product that's virtual. So I'm going to go to WooCommerce checkout. And now there will be an option because I've added the plugin for WooCommerce Checkout Manager to do 2 things. First of all, let's remove the order notes. Yes. Number 2, let's then save that. Let's go, number 2, to the billings fields for WooCommerce. And let's do a little rearranging. First of all, I'm going to grab the email address, and that needs to be the very first thing you ever take. Why? Because if you get their email, you own this customer's relationship. You can track the abandoned cart. You can get back to them. If you don't have their email, you got nothing, kid. Next, I don't need anything in the billing because I still have shipping. I can always get their address from shipping. I don't need that twice in billing for what I do. I want that to be for virtual products. So I'm going to use these toggles to disable or hide all of the other fields in billing. They are not necessary. You do not need them. Even for the gateway, you do not need them because Stripe, if it needs it, has its own field in the checkout for the credit card. Notice I'm having trouble here with save changes. This field these seem to be Ajax save. Let's just double check by refreshing. And they seem to have saved. So when we go to the checkout page and refresh, look at what we end up with. Email, first name, last name, country, street address. That's one of them got missed. See that? And also the country got missed. Let's do another check here. Check out how awesome that is. Like just out of the box, how super clean that is. Now, if you do not live in EU countries, you do not need this notice of privacy. In America, as an attorney, you don't need to say that. If you want to, you can, but putting that in there, privacy policy, isn't helping you or helping anyone else. So to change that, we go to WooCommerce and settings again, but this time we're going to go under advanced. And I take it back. We're going to go under accounts and privacy. And we need to set up a couple things. First of all, even though it's not the design thing I promised, we don't really ever want guest checkout. We always want people to log in because that is the only way you are going to get their email. And that is the only way they're going to be added to your CRM for future relationships. There is no difference to the client between being a logged in and logged out person. They do not know. You're not violating any privacy because you have lots of things here for personal data retention. Even in the EU, you can get rid of the stuff like as soon as they stop being your customer. But you want them to log in during checkout, no guest checkout. We only want them to create an account only during checkout. We don't want people just randomly creating an account because that will create a spam opportunity. We do want to send the password link and use their email as the account. That is the best, most validating way to ensure that the person who's created an account is really a real person with real access. But as you'll see, it does not prevent us from allowing them to immediately be logged in even before they validate it. So it gives you the best of all worlds. And then finally, we don't need to check out this privacy policy here in the United States because that's just more words to distract somebody from what you really want them to do, which is give you the money, man. And now we've got a really optimum checkout with no extra work, no extra design. But wait, what if you wanted to customize this? Well, let's go back to the magic of using launch flows with the Gutenberg layout, not full site editor, not the crazy block, but now we've got a canvas, a blank canvas, where if we put stuff on the page, you can do it one of two ways. You can do it additively or you can do it subtractively. Additively means you can just add stuff where you want it and it will go above the default WooCommerce. But you can also do subtractively. I can put things on the page that are launch flows blocks and hide stuff that I don't want to show or replace it. Like what if I wanted to replace the default place order button, but not do it in a normal way? I can do that with just adding the block and hiding the default one. I can also do cool things if I show the sidebar of changing the words on the place order button. So instead it's say, check out, baby. If I put that on, it instantly and automatically on this custom checkout page will change the words place order to check out, baby. So really, really flexible. If I wanted to change the default of the button and put something else in, here's what I end up having to do. I have to do a layout that shows where I want that to be in relevant position to the other stuff. Let's put all of the components that are supposed to be on the page in there so we can rearrange them like one of those newspaper coupon clipper things. To do that, we go over to the patterns and you'll notice we've got pre-made patterns for launch flows. So launch flows has a couple choices. You can do a single column layout, a 2-column layout. You can do a 2-column full site editor, whatever. You're not going to do that because I don't condone full site editor. Let's put the single column layout in. And what I want to show you is how you can do things like additive, subtractive. First of all, see what we've got. We've got launch flows, notices, login, review, billing, shipping, coupon, payment, additional. Okay. We already know that we hid the additional field, but the other things are now going to be in a different order because what we've done is sort of cut them out with launch flows using an X-Acto knife and reposition them as blocks. So watch what will happen. The coupon is going to move. The review is going to move. So now I've got, see, the review at the top, then the billing details, then the coupon, then the checkout. What this means is that I can customize this by adding and removing different things. So for example, see where it says your order. If I'm not happy with that, that H3 title is part of the LF review. I can hide just the title by selecting that block, clicking on the right column, going to advanced, and then just typing this simple syntax, LF hide title with a dash in between. What that does is it will remove the default title so that I can replace it just like I did with that shop page. So here it is removed. And how do I replace it? I just say add before heading. I put in the text and I say, your stuff, baby. I'm feeling like Telly Savalas today. I would make that an H3 so it's not huge. And when I refresh the page, now I've got exactly the words that I want where I want them. I can also do really custom cool display of things, which I won't go into here because I have 1,000 videos. I can put upsell, downsell, order bump. I can make a one-time purchase offer. I can do a 2-column. And to prove my point, I've got some pre-made patterns that you can use by copy paste over here at patterns.launchflows. And if I look for, I got 16 checkout pages you can filter through. Any one of those, because you're using the same components from IKEA, any one of these will work perfectly well, even something really crazy like a product bundle. And all you have to do, let's say here's one with a sports camp. I mean, we can look at what's here. If you like the basic gist of this, you could just say copy the pattern code. Now, if you do this copy paste method, be sure that you're comprehensive and you get rid of your other stuff. And when you paste it in, it's essential that you don't have any default product IDs that are not legitimate. So it will not work, or it might even break the site if you got product IDs that aren't legit. So just make sure that you check your product IDs. In the new version of Launchflows 5, I've got a better way of doing this. But so it's 16, it's 12, 14, 16. So if I just change this to 12, and this one to like 14, and this one to 16, I can essentially get an example going here without breaking anything. And I'm just going to remove this option here just so I can show you. This should work without breaking the site. The idea, though, is that with this, we would probably want to have a full width page. So we'd go back to full width. And let's see what we get here. And notice, without much, actually, I take it back, full width might not look so good. Maybe we'll go back to boxed or normal. Without any effort at all, we're able to really just have this crazy, awesome, functional checkout page. Because by working with launch flows, we can just rearrange the components, hide the components, swap out the components. And it's really nice because you don't have to have technical skills. Notice I've got this instant Ajax add to cart capability. It took me 2 seconds and it's all in plain view. All right, let's do the last one. Products themselves. Now, products are really fun because what I say is products are the container that you're going to use for all your sales. There's no purpose in having a separate sales page for your LearnDash course, for your community, for whatever. Use the products as their own sales pages. What do I mean? Well, LaunchFlows gives you the capability of turning any product into its own sales page with one simple toggle. Scroll down to the LaunchFlows tab and notice in the LaunchFlows product data tab, it says select product template. See where it says original template. Let's look at what the original template looks like first of all. I'm going to close a couple of these. It's nice and it's clean because I've chosen an option here called Instant Clean Sales Page. So out of the box, if I uncheck that, let's first of all see the extra junk that shows up. Notice what we get without that. We get the reviews, the order. You would even get like other suggested products. You can customize this to a certain extent by going inside of the cadence, appearance, and doing what we did a minute ago, which was we can go appearance, customize, WooCommerce, and then product catalog, single product layout. Notice we have to choose a product here probably if we can. I don't have a link to one, so let's just click on product 3, for example. Notice we can do some things to the layout, right? With content area, uh, what size the page, but that's it. There's really nothing. This is where that ShopKit plugin was supposed to carry the weight. We don't need that complexity. Let's just do it natively. So, how do we do it natively? First thing we do in the product, launch flows, let's switch to blank template. When we do that, it's essentially like a hiding everything option first. Ta-da, magic. Now what do? Let's make a beautiful sales page, but we can put anything we want in as the sales page. So let's do a full width. Let's hide the top. We want a edge to edge canvas, essentially, like a big white canvas that has no borders, no frame. Now let's use the design library, or we could use starter templates, and we're just going to pick a full page if we want, something that looks attractive, or we can build it from the various blocks that are available. Any of these are awesome, and they're very complex, but they're beautiful. Let's just add this one. Click on it, and in 2 seconds, without AI, like I was talking to Kurt and Jonathan about yesterday, without AI, I've picked something that now I can choose the words I want. And just to make a full circle here, watch this. If I go to ChatGPT and I go, think like a marketing expert and give me an above the fold billboard copy for my WordPress agency services site, include headline, subhead, call to action. And for a bonus, give me an awesome background image. Okay. Using AI directly, I can have it spit out exactly what I want for that specific thing or for the whole site. But what's so awesome about this is that I have the right tool for the right job. So all I do is like take this and again, go over here to my thing and I paste. And then I go over here and I go, here's the subheadline, and I copy and I go, oh, paste. And I go over here and I go, book your free strategy call with that icon and all that weird stuff. And I go here and I highlight it and I paste. And then finally, if it's giving me some image, generate image, let's say. I don't know if this one has the ability to generate the image because it's JetGPT-4. Oh, it is. So I'm even going to have it give me an image, which I don't know if it's going to be good compared to Canva, but just to show you that it's possible. It spits out an image. What I would do is go to Canva, or I would use Pexels or something else, because to me, that just makes it more awesome, more direct what I want to pick. This is going to be rando chance. I have no idea what even is going to spit out of this, which kind of proves my point that AI, if you don't tell it what to do, it's really like a teenager driving the station wagon and you're in the back seat hoping for the best. And by the way, this is taking way too long. What I would do is normally go here, by the way, for an extra bonus. And I know we're close to the end here. I go into Canva, and what I do is I say, create a design, and then I tell it what size I want. So it could be like a YouTube thumbnail or a landscape. And then I go, what to put in here. I just choose from the images. Let's say I do elements, and I go, let's say, if I did a landscape, let's do agents, happy people, agency, happy people. And then here's like a picture. And then I can do one of two things. I can either like scale this up and download it, or I can do it as an export. Let's just share that. So I download this image, and I can limit the file size, by the way, to 180 kilobits so that it's already ready to use. This thing is still baking, so I'm just going to call uncle on that. But in the meantime, I go over here and I open up my row layout like I'd done before, and I can just change the background image to this awesome thing. Now, for this, it's using, we have to find where it's at. For this, the section has the background. So we're just going to edit the image, and we'll upload this new cool thing from Canva that I just downloaded. Let's see if I did download it. The download failed. It failed. Let's try it again. I'll do 180. It might not be happy because I only have one picture on here. See where it says only one image or graphic? Let's fool this. I don't know why it's so weird about this. I think to slow people down. If you make a double, you can download just the first one, which is what it's sort of saying to me. It's saying, Spence, we don't want you just to take the images by themselves. And I'm saying, Canva, it's okay. I'm going to do it anyway. So now I download just the one and it's working. And so now, real quickly, when that downloads, I'm going to upload that as the background. Okay. And now I'll select that file. Untitled Design 16. And you want to optimize your images, especially background stuff, because you don't want to put a 3 megabyte picture in there. Notice I can move this control around to change the focus if it's better that the image hits somewhere else. And when I click save, we will see that I've got a product that acts as its own sales page, fully customized, beautiful, AI generated on it. But we need to do what is the call to action link. And here's the amazing thing when you're working with launch flows. Launch flows turns any product into its own direct to checkout link. You just go to the product side and launch flows has the link right here that you need. You do want to make sure that you've scrolled down the page and set up with launch flows to go to the checkout page or the thank you or whatever else you want to do. Like maybe after purchase, you want to send them to the My Account. Okay. As long as that's programmed in, especially the checkout, just take this link, the direct checkout link, and you simply add that. Let's make sure I copied it. Add that to this button. So click on the book your free strategy, add that in the link, and that will automatically give you a gorgeous sales page in no time that doesn't require anything else and yet allows you to sell this product directly into the cart. Let's open this and have a look. Here's my new sales page about my product. Obviously, I'll go and fill out the rest of the stuff or remove stuff as I need it. But AI be damned, I click on this, boom, that sends this product directly to my new custom checkout ready to buy. And it's super awesome, super easy. Okay, I ran out of time, but I'm going to just hint. We can do the same thing, and I have other videos about this. We'll cover it in another day because everybody wants to get on with their morning. If you go to the My Account, we can also customize the My Account in a very similar way. And we even have a custom plugin in the kit for doing more with this. But out of the box, you can change the left and right side of the sidebar. And then you can use the same techniques I'm showing. And I have another video in the tutorials of WP Launch Kit for this that will allow you to add stuff below, above, around, even move all the pieces. So the takeaway for today is do not be afraid of customizing WooCommerce using the tools that I'm showing you here, because you'll notice how quick, how visibly obvious the things were versus as much as you can avoid it, don't get into using elements. Don't get using dynamically replacing content with template parts because it's really hard to keep track of that stuff. And if you're going with me on this ride to a place where, as I've shown in a couple of videos, I want to just make it like fill in the blank on a form and bing, bang, boom, bam, everything else is going to be in the right spot. The less you replace the default components, the better you're going to be able to go along with the ride, just like I showed you for the patterns, right? You don't need to use the tools that everybody gives you just because they gave them to you. Maybe you use 1 out of 10 things. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm curating this. Hopefully you guys appreciate this. I know Anne has come a long way, so thanks. Yes, Anne. And I talked about this yesterday with Kurt in the show about the AI part. Use AI after you used your eyeballs and your brain for the copywriting, for the content, for the stuff that's important about selling, but not for designing the pages. That's just never going to work out. By the way, before we're done, let's see if the brownies have been baked here by AI. It did, but notice unfortunately what it does is it just put all this shit into one page. That's not what I wanted. I wanted just the background. I wasn't specific enough. So that was 5 minutes of my life I'm never going to get back. Hope you guys had a great time today. You learned something. I hope that you will join me and become a subscriber at WP Launchify to our minute launch, either the full package for 97 or like John and some other people, maybe you don't need the hosting, maybe just the components. Either way, you've got access to me for unlimited questions. You've got the office hours. You've got the club. You've got endless content I've been sending out. Hopefully you've enjoyed my master classes, which are more in-depth. And I am working really hard with Anne's help on the final piece of the puzzle, which is the minute launch. This is going to happen, trust me. But we have to do this thoughtfully after the things are finished. The ingredients, all linking to the original sources. Then you're going to have what's essentially, I call this the build order. This is going to be way simpler than you see here. This is going to be like the index of mom's recipe book. And this recipe index is going to have like the things that most of you always want to build linked to these recipe cards. And these recipe cards are going to be so simple because trust me, it's hard. We're going to limit ourselves to just like 3-4 steps max, one video done, so that you don't feel overwhelmed because you want to make French toast or a souffle. You can just literally go, oh, click one card of info, click, go to another. And that's complemented by my personal support via email, which, by the way, John, hopefully you've enjoyed. Because you've taken advantage of it in a great way, given me some good tips, or it's because you want to go on and do some hands-on help, but you want to get as far as you can first. Either way, thanks for being you. I love all you guys. I appreciate you greatly, especially for supporting what I'm doing. And I'll look forward to seeing you guys on the next video. Ciao. Have a great weekend.